Welcome to another episode of Smiling Again. My name is Kim Moore, your host, and my guest with me today is Oliver Hojas. Oliver is such an incredible, inspirational artist, and I discovered him through his art. His art caught my eye, which led me to sort of delve a little bit deeper to find out more about who he was. And his story just captured my heart. And that's why he's here today to speak with us. So welcome, Oliver.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here today and hopefully inspire some people.
Definitely. And today's conversation really is all about the family illness of alcoholism and hope. And the hope that the generational cycle really can be broken. And they say that there are people who can make the choice to end the cycle, to be the one that breaks it. And Oliver, in my eyes, you are one of those people.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
So to help everybody understand the circumstances and your story, it was your mother who was an alcoholic and your grandfather who were alcoholics, correct?
Exactly, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It started with my grandfather, and I met him only once, so I just heard a lot about him. And of course, from my grandmother was always talking bad about him, and alcohol was often a topic. And I know that my mom actually told me that once that because she also never met him, and she didn't feel so connected to her mother, which kind of she felt like she was not wanted. But actually my grandmother just needed to work a lot because she had no help, and so she was never there. And so my mother grew up with the sister from her mother. And and then at one point when she was pretty young, I think around 16, she wanted to try alcohol because she wanted to feel close to her father, because she didn't know him. And that's how it started. That's when, it was around 16 when she started drinking, and I think from there on it started, and was always a problem, was always a topic. And even when I grew up, and my brother, they often talked about my mom in a bad way because she drank, and I also saw her being drunk, and so it was not a nice experience. And but yeah, as you said, I wanted to break through this pattern, because I saw how painful it can be and how it can just destroy a family. So for me, it was very clear, I don't want to do that. I want to break free from that. And and then that's how it started for me.
I know in the conversations that we had, it's very apparent that you loved your mom, or that you do love your mom very much, and that you're also a big brother. Tell us what it's like being a big brother in a home where there's active alcoholism. What was that like for you?
I mean, it was nice to have a little brother, and I was always very protective. So I was looking after him. On the other hand, when my mom was drunk, it was always me that, went there to my mom. For example, when she was drinking and crying because, something happened, and it was all around the topic of man relationship. So there was also, it was tough to see because my brother was still sleeping. He actually woke up too when she was drinking, listening to loud music and crying, and we both woke up. But I was the big brother, so I stood up, went to her, telling her, please, can you put down the music? And then she's crying and telling me the whole sad story, which then I took on, and I started crying. And so it was it was tough as well. But I really also wanted to protect my brother. So I do think he got less of that experience. But I mean, sometimes we were even together with my mom going somewhere, and so I couldn't fully protect him. But I would also say it made me strong, and it made me proud because I always protected him. So I actually liked that role.
And they do say that the experiences that we have shape us into who we become.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Clearly, your role as a big brother has shaped you in so many ways. And
Yeah.
you mentioned that when you were young, you went to boarding school. Could you help people understand sort of like the time frames of how old you were when you went to boarding school and when you finished? Because that had quite an impact on your life, didn't it?
Yes, definitely. So we went to boarding school when I was 8 and my brother was 6. And we stayed there till he went a bit earlier out of the boarding school, and I stayed till 17 or 16, 16, 17. Yeah. And yeah, that impacted me a lot because there was this was a long time frame. And it was funny because the government authorities decided to get us there. And my mom didn't think it's a good idea. She was actually against, she wanted to do she was to a certain degree, very aware into spirituality. She was also into not using medicine, like, the normal medicine, but more like natural healing and homeopathy and all these things. But she was alone, right? My father was working, so he was never really here. And so she was very tough on herself for that, for letting us go there, because they convinced her. But in the end of the day, I think it was better because she really couldn't take care of us. And she had these problems. And so I think in the end of the day, it was good. I mean, it was tough when we were there as kids, especially not being able to go home again. And I can remember being, very sad and crying every weekend because I needed to go back to the boarding school, even though like my home environment was not really healthy. It was still my home and my mom. So it was for a long time period really tough, but at one point I got used to it. I started making friends and I could develop my creativity, which I think I probably couldn't have done in a normal school in Zurich. Because later on I went into a normal school in Zurich, and yeah, it was not so easy for me. So after that, I actually became really grateful that I was there and that I could be creative, because we had like I think it was once a week we had a creative day where we could choose different workshops, many creative things with different materials, and like wood, we worked with wood, like many things. So it was good, and also music was a big part there. So yeah, today I'm really grateful that I was there.
That was a really big part of your life, and it has really sent your life in a different direction. And we'll touch on that. But before we
Mm-hmm.
do, there's one thing I remember you mentioning to me was that when you were about 17, when you came out of boarding school,
Mm-hmm.
you felt a lot of pain and you started to explore what's the purpose of life, all this
Mm-hmm.
that I'm going through.
Yeah.
And that starting to question sent you on a bit of a journey, didn't it?
Yeah, there was a journey, and it was especially when I came out of the boarding school and I was in Zurich, in the big city. I actually wanted to go to Zurich. So they actually, first of all, they always said like I'm crazy, I'm mentally disabled. I mean, they said that behind my back. That was also tough. That was right before I went out of the boarding school, because I told a career consultant, he showed me what for jobs I can choose after the school. And I'm like, there were quite a lot, but I looked at them and nothing resonated with me. And then I told him I want to become either like a singer, a dancer, musician, actor, all these things, artist. And he was like, looking weird at me. And then he said, it's not really, you cannot just do these things, and just look at it again and see if you find something. I looked at it again and said, no, nothing resonates with me. And I really took time to read through the jobs. And I told him that's what I want. And then he gave up, and behind my back, he told the house father. So the house father was looking after us. We had different houses where we were living. And in the house I was living, there was this house father. So he was like a father figure. And yeah, he's somehow behind my back. I got to know that from a kid in the home I was living, that he said I'm mentally disabled. So that really hurt me. So that made me decide actually that I want to go out of the boarding school. I don't want to be longer there anymore. Even though they supported me, in the end of the day, they said I can go to an acting school, but I would need to stay 3 or 4 years longer in the boarding school. And back then I was 16. So even though that would have been a path I really wanted to go down to, I said, no, I want to go. I want to see the city. I want to become independent. So I got an apprenticeship. And that's when it basically started. That's when I went out into the world. And because the boarding school was also like, it was so small and it was really far away from, any city. Even the village was extremely small. So it was really kind of a protected space from the outside. We also couldn't just go out. So yeah, then I saw the city, and that's when I saw like people are really unhappy. They're just like they're running around, they're stressed, they don't look happy. And I also wasn't happy, to be honest, right? I had no idea like what is this all about, right? So now I have an apprenticeship, now I need to work for like 3-4 years. And I mean, I had a bit of a purpose. I was like, I was really, really shy. So I'm like, okay, that, the apprenticeship as a salesperson. So I was working in a clothing store. I thought this would help me to get over my shyness. So I had a purpose why I did that, but I didn't have a bigger purpose, and I was just confused. And that's when I was really asking myself many times, like, what's the purpose of all of this? And those are probably because of my past, with my mom and everything, how I grew up, and not really having a family. My mom actually told me that I told her once as a kid already that I wanted to die. So I didn't remember. I mean, yeah, I think I do. I just remembered as a kid many times being like helpless and lost and not, just not feeling good in this environment. But as a kid, you cannot do anything, right? So yeah, anyways, then back to the city when I started seeing all of that and asking myself these questions. On one point, I went to my father to Chicago. And my father, I didn't see him much, but when we saw him, usually on holidays somewhere in Chicago or Italy, that was quite cool. But I didn't really have a connection to him because he was never really there, right? But still, it was cool to be in Chicago, see this city, and explore a bit. And that's when I just had the thought, what's the purpose of life? It just popped into my mind. I'm like, why don't I put it onto YouTube? And then I put it on YouTube, and that's when I saw a movie it was kind of, it was a documentary, but kind of mixed into a movie with The Matrix, Eckhart Tolle, and all other speakers. And they were specifically talking about the power of the now. They were talking that we are living in a matrix. And it resonated with me so much. And it gave me a lot of hope, because that was for me the beginning. And I was 17, yeah. And I showed it afterwards to my brother, being afraid that he might think I'm crazy. But he loved it too. So that's when we basically both started on this journey. And that's how it started. But then, of course, it took a long time until I really found myself. And it was also difficult, because oftentimes when you wake up to these things, it can become actually pretty hard, right? It's like, all these things now, but you don't know what to do and how to get out of it, and how to find your purpose and all of that.
I love that you're 17 years old and you're discovering who Eckhart Tolle is. I found him when I was 50, Oliver.
Wow.
So and it's amazing that you just started searching for answers and searching for a new way to be, and then that really did set you off on your healing journey, and creativity has been a big part of that journey, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. I lost it for a while, and that's also why I felt so much pain when I did after the boarding school, when I did the apprenticeship. That's when I decided for a sales job, which had nothing to do with creativity. And that's when I kind of forgot about it, and I started trying to fit in to society, trying to fit in to school and my friends, my friends also had different interests. And and I remember even in my job, that lady asked me, she was also working there. So she was saying, are you even good at anything? Just like this. She was like at my face, and I'm like, I didn't know what to say. I'm like, and I believed actually I'm probably not. That's what I thought about myself, because the creativity was not really valued, at least not there. And everybody said, you should, this is something you can do as a hobby. You first need to make money, all these things. And I actually can remember myself having all these dreams, but the dreams became kind of smaller and smaller until they went into the background. And then I had suddenly this this dream or wish that I on one point make so much money that I can do these things again, that I can sing, dance, and all these things. So it's actually quite sad if you think of, because these were the things that I was really good at, and that was my gift and genius. And yeah, and then it also took a while to discover that again. And yeah, were also some painful experiences and moments. I broke up the apprenticeship, for example. After 2 years, I realized I don't see any purpose in here. But probably also it helped me to see, you know, having already a certain awareness that this is kind of a matrix. I don't have to do that, especially if this is not the way I want to go. And so, yeah, after 2 years, I broke it up. And it was actually really good for me, because I'm like, you know, I'm doing what I want to do. I'm not trying to form myself into what society says you should do. And because everybody said you should have an apprenticeship, you should finish it. And I see, okay, I see the purpose of finishing things, but I really couldn't see the purpose on finishing this apprenticeship, which I didn't like at all. It made me feel tired. So most of the time I was tired, because there was nothing that gave me energy. And I was even like worried about myself, you know, what's going on? I'm tired all the time. And yeah, after 2 years, I said, I'm done. And that's when I already had my first coach. And he was actually a fitness coach and a mental coach. And so I was really into fitness as well. Before I found back to creativity, I found fitness. And fitness, I think, also helped me, because with my mom, I had zero structure, right? Nothing. We were moving all the time, no structure, no frame. So I guess I sometimes even struggle with that today, still a little bit, but I'm so much better already. So fitness helped me to build discipline and also be proud of myself. And yeah, and then after a while, I started actually with photography. That's when it came towards, I had all these different part-time jobs. And once I was working in Burger King, and I actually, you know, I can be quite positive. So, you know, I had a goal. I wanted to make enough money to travel. So I actually felt quite good there, but it was not something I really wanted to support, and also was not something I want to do long term. And yeah, and then I was traveling, and while I was traveling in India, I realized the last day of the holidays, I was getting really, really sad. And for me, it was clear it was because I know that I now need to go back to this life that I don't like, working in Burger King and all of that, right? So I had a camera with me and made really good photos, also of my brother. So I knew I had a good eye. Again, that's something creative. I was good at it. And I told myself, I'm going to, you know, do something different. I'm going to learn how to become a professional photographer, and I want to build my own business. And then when I came back, I was really committed. And actually, with a friend, we built a company. We split up on one point because we both were, I don't know, maybe, you know, very creative people. So yeah, it didn't really work. And that was my first experience, like also making some money with something creative. And it was much more my thing, but of course, still needed to have part-time jobs. And the moment, like one point, I said I quit the job in Burger King and do this full time, so photography. And I moved to a different place, because I thought when I'm there, I have a new beginning, and I can, you know, everything will work well. I can, you know, make lots of money from my photography. In the end of the day, it didn't work out. And it was a really tough time, because I had no money, couldn't pay my bills. I was really, really lucky. I would say always the universe supported me, was always at my back, because there were like moments when I had no apartment, didn't know where to go to. And then I just randomly met someone on a shooting. He was a real estate agent, made some phone calls, and then I had an apartment for free. It was empty, and I slept on the floor for several months, but I had an apartment. And at one point I realized I have to change. You know, this cannot go further like this. And so basically I went back to my mom. And there was also that, then I was already 20, 21. But going back to my mom, wasn't really proud of that, but I needed to build myself back up. I got a part-time job again. And that's also when I had some experience with my mom actually sometimes being drunk again. And so that was also tough, you know, having this experience as a child, and then coming back to my mom and then seeing her drunk again. And yeah, it was, but somehow I learned to deal with it in a different way. And that's when I started painting. And painting was for me like like I started painting because I needed to heal myself. All these, negative doubts about myself and the beliefs about myself, I needed to heal, and also the trauma and the experiences. And that's when I found art, and that's when I really started coming back alive and finding my purpose. Actually, was what I was always looking for, because photography, it was nice, but it wasn't really it. And with art, it all changed. That's when I really changed, and everything in my life changed too. Yeah.
So you've described this amazing period of exploration and really trying to discover purpose, happiness, and to discover you, really. And you're doing all of this at such a young age. Because I have children, I think, and they're at various stages in their life. The stages that you're describing are really stages where young adults also explore alcohol and drinking. Did you explore using alcohol?
I actually did, yes, but it was a very, very short period, because I saw how destructive it is. I mean, alcohol was for me never a thing where I'm like my mom drinking alone at home, right? Because that was never in my mind. I mean, I did maybe sometimes a few drinks, but never that so much that I was really drunk, right? As my mom sometimes. And I was doing it more with friends, and I had my phase where I tried some things. But I would say for many, I saw that some of my friends, I needed to distance myself from one point from all of my friends, because they were using drugs, they were drinking, they were even, some of them were criminals, and I just fell into this environment because of the school I was in. So with the apprenticeship, I needed to go to the school like twice a week, I think, and that's where I met all these people, and started hanging out with them, and it was really bad. So there was also kind of a dark period, but I got out of it because I knew there is more, and I want more of life. I want to create a great life for myself, and I want to find my purpose. All these things. I was driven for something better. What I needed to do is really on one point just to distance myself from everyone, because I was already into personal growth and reading Eckhart Tolle and all these things. But with them, I couldn't talk about that. So I tried to fit in. I tried to be like them because I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be accepted. But yeah, on one point I just saw it doesn't make any sense. I'm here for something different. I'm here for bigger purpose. And yeah, I would say that the books I was reading, also the audios I was listening, the coaches I had, they really helped me because they kept me focused on improving. And it was hard because I didn't come from a family and an environment where I had built a good self-esteem and self-confidence. And I mean, usually when you come out of a good family, then you have a certain base, but I didn't have this base. I was so tough with myself. I just also knew I need to go through these things and just work on myself and improve myself and look for answers and never stop, just keep going. And then slowly I met other people that were into that, but it took a while. Now my whole everyone I know is into personal growth, and I have amazing friends, and I do what I love now. I make money with my art. All of these things are a reality now, but back then it took me maybe like 4 years until I met maybe 1 or 2 people that were into that too. So I was in a certain period really alone most of the time, maybe sometimes with my brother too, but yeah.
And it's certainly so much easier moving forward when you're surrounded by people who understand, and that you're not alone, that they understand your focus on your personal growth. That must make it easier.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, this is so important because again, the people I was surrounded with back then, they really pulled me down. But now, like the opposite is now the people I have around me that are all into personal growth, that are very positive. When I'm with them, I get excited. They lift me up. They give me actually new ideas, new inspiration for anything in my life. So it's incredible. And also how positive they are around me and giving me compliments. I mean, back then it was more common that you were talking bad about your friends, and that was kind of cool. And it's like so stupid if you think of. But yeah, I'm so happy that I realized it on one point and could really cut myself off from these people. And that's when I had the period to be alone.
So
Yeah.
this entire journey that you're describing, and how you've grown as a person, and in the background you have your mom, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
just wondering about, did has forgiveness played a role in your healing and getting you to where you are today?
Forgiveness was very important. There was also a period, I mean, it was a period as well where I was listening to to like audio books, or it was more like CDs back then. I used CDs, and listening to meditations where I was forgiving my mom, I was forgiving my father, and I was crying. It was like I experienced everything again. I was really just sitting there for half an hour or maybe even longer, and visualizing this exercise, forgiving my mom, and seeing that she also had pain. My mom came from a very difficult childhood as well. So seeing that and embracing that, and seeing her as a child, how hard she had it, and then being able to forgive because of that, was really healing. And of course, it's still, I would say, it still took time somehow. You do an exercise, you forgive, but then you go back to real life, and it might still be a bit of a challenge. But on one point, I just felt like it's gone. Like all the resentment, the anger is all gone. I mean, I'm not now saying that everything she did was right, but I fully forgave her for what she did, because she gave her best, and she also came from a difficult childhood, even harder than me, I would say. So I really can understand, and we actually have a really good relationship. So me and my mom were always close, and but it also helped me to see actually the things she did wrong in a way, first of all, because it was part of the understanding process to be able then to forgive her for that too. The thing that really helped me, because I think my mom started drinking because she never lived who she is. She never expressed herself. She's like super creative, just like me. I got that from her, but she suppressed it and she never lived it. And I think that's why she went to alcohol, because that's a lot of pain. If you're not living yourself, if you're not living what you're supposed to do on this earth, you will start feel pain, because there will be something nagging you, telling you, hey, but then when we cannot deal with it, if we don't let ourselves be free, or break free, first of all, then we will feel the pain, and maybe get to alcohol or things like this to relieve the pain.
There was a lot of compassion in what you just said there, Oliver.
Yeah.
Being able to hold compassion for someone, in this case for your mom,
Yeah.
um
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
sounds like it's been such a big part of your healing, which I believe is integral to healing. Not just compassion for others, but how about self-compassion for yourself? Because you've mentioned before that you're really quite hard on yourself at
Mm.
times. Do you
Oh
hold
yeah.
self-compassion?
As well, yeah. But that was even harder for me to have that on myself. That was actually, when I remember back, I think that art brought me a bit out of that, because I can remember starting to paint, and then it was almost like I was there painting, but at the same time I was kind of observing the whole
Mhm.
thing. And so my thoughts were there, and my thoughts were really tough, like saying like, I'm not good enough, this painting is, I cannot paint, I shouldn't even start, all these things. But somehow I could just observe them and let them be, without going into the story, because that's what I did normally. I have these thoughts, and then you're like thinking, and then you go into it, and then, but with painting, I started having this distance, and yeah, slowly. I mean, I worked a lot with self-love. I had mentors, right, that helped me, that also introduced me to self-love. And also that was another period that was kind of together with my art period, when I was working with this one mentor, and we did all these exercises, like we were doing whole weekends where we were meditating, we did exercises, we did movement, we did so many things. And I think the biggest part was to break free from the box I thought I need to be in, or the person I need to be,
Mhm.
and just becoming who I really am, and feeling myself more than think about myself. It's like, so the movement, it was not really dancing, it was dancing, but it was more like moving and expressing yourself. this really helped me a lot as well. And it was all mixed together. So the meditation period with the movement and the exercises and the teachings I learned from my mentor and the art was kind of all together and helped me a lot. Yeah.
That sounds beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And I'm really grateful that you're here sharing this story with us, because I feel like we've been able to observe your journey through the story that you've shared. And I like to end every episode on gratitude, because I believe gratitude is integral to healing and being able to build that positive mindset with gratitude, because there's always something to be grateful for.
Yeah.
What is something that you're grateful for, Oliver?
Yeah, I'm grateful that I discovered this path so early. And also, I mean, just to say quickly about gratitude, that's also when I was in this dark place where I failed with photography. Gratitude brought me out of it. Actually, the same evening when I realized enough is enough, I used gratitude, used it in the morning, and from then on, I used it every day. I remember I was like going with the bus, just like I didn't even go anywhere. I just went into the bus, started listening to gratitude for like for an hour, and to work every day, to work listening to gratitude, and this really changed me. And back then I thought I don't have much to be grateful for. Everything went wrong in my life, blah, blah, blah. But when I started seeing the things I'm grateful for, that's when everything changed, and more things that I could be grateful for came into my life. So yeah, I'm very grateful that I discovered these things so early and had all this support from, all these incredible teachers and mentors, because I mean, they are really giving their life to help us, and it helped me immensely. I'm also grateful for my art, that I discovered my talent and genius, and that I can live from it now, because that was a dream that now came true. So I'm very grateful for that. And I'm also grateful that I can share my journey with other people and hopefully inspire them as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure anyone who's heard this story, your story, and your honesty in sharing it is going to take something away from this. And I think it's really inspiring to hear from someone who has been the one to break the cycle in the family.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing that. So that's everything for this episode for Smiling Again. So I hope that there's just one thing in there. If anyone takes it away, perhaps it's forgiveness, it's gratitude, it's compassion, and it's having the courage to explore and discover yourself. And if you can do that, I'm sure you will be smiling again.